we have a very special treat in the theme of Motivation Monday. Scott Fried, an international award-winning speaker, youth educator, and advocate for HIV/AIDS, which he's been living with for 29 years now, is on the line with us to tell his story of how he was inspired to dedicate his life to educate and motivate others after being diagnosed. His story is one I hope can enlighten and educate you and show how anyone can make the world a better place, even in the toughest of circumstances. Could you explain what sparked your inspiration for becoming a motivational public speaker?
So I got infected with HIV in 1987. I was 24. It was the beginning of what we now know was the wave of the epidemic of AIDS. I discovered support groups a few months later, and it was in an apartment on 18th Street in Chelsea in New York City, and the guy who lent his living room and I think are the only two people alive from the meeting that night. There were dozens of men and some women there. And we talked in the dark about our life with HIV. We didn't know that we were inside of a wave. We knew that we were drowning, metaphorically, but we didn't know that it was going to get worse before it would get better. We only knew that we wanted to stay alive, and I only knew that I couldn't find a seat. There was no chair. It was packed in that apartment. I sat on the floor, and the facilitator began to speak, and she said something I give you, or something that changed my life and set me on this course, which answers your question. She said, "You want to live, right? But you've been diagnosed with HIV, right? And you've been told it's a death sentence." And in 87, it was. And so she said, "You want to live, right? I cannot give you days to your life, but I can give you life to your days. And here's how to do it. You want to live? Find something and someone who's got it worse than you and make their lives better, and you will know that you've got it not so bad. You've got to serve, you've got to volunteer." Now, I set out from that moment forth on the floor of Bruce's apartment in the dark with no chair to sit on. I set out on a course of service and volunteering or offering and being of use. Because as she told us that day, it would add life to our days, and so it has. It's been 25 years of service, 29 years of living with HIV, and my days are filled with life. I keep asking to be sent, and I go. Sometimes it's to a high school, Hebrew school, juvenile detention center. Sometimes it's to a summer camp, a group of parents.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
What is the best response you've received from any of your lectures?
It was 1992. It was a summer camp. My boyfriend, Michael, was dying of AIDS and did die a few months later in January of 93. And this camper approached me on the field, and she was out of breath, and she said, oh, I just want to ask you one thing. And I said, "Sure, what is it?" She said, "What can I do to help? How can I help you?" To me, the greatest kindness I will ever get and compliment I will ever get, the nicest response I could hear from somebody after they hear me speak is, "What can I do? What can I do now? How can I be of service? How can I pay it forward? How can I make my life as rich as I think you've made your life in the same way?" Her question was, "What can I do to help you?" It showed me that she was thinking of me and not herself, which tells me that the world is in a good place when people are thinking about how to help others. So when people want more of what I give them by asking questions of me in an email after my lecture or following me on Twitter and reaching out to me with their fears and their concerns, that to me is the greatest feedback I could ever get. They want more.
92 WICB, it's Motivation Monday. And if you're just joining us now, we have a very special guest, Scott Fried, international award-winning speaker, youth educator, advocate for HIV/AIDS, is on the line with us. We just heard his backstory and how he was inspired to dedicate his life to educate others. Now, Scott, I'm wondering, did you ever think your work would become something so impactful on the world?
Yeah, I did. I gotta be honest with you. Good. I want to be humble and say, no, I had no idea, but I knew that I was onto something. My boyfriend was dying of AIDS, and it was a painful death. He had no platelets, and so he was bleeding out. He and 132 other friends of mine were dying, and I was witnessing this, and I wasn't dying. I was flourishing, in fact, waiting for the moment when my virus would get aggressive, but it just didn't at the time and still hasn't. And I knew that by witnessing all these deaths, watching these exits, I noticed that I was onto something. I wanted to share with the world what I was witnessing. I knew that I was onto something, and it was big. So, yeah, to be honest with you, I knew this would break open and blow open into something much bigger than me, because it's not about me. The 133 friends of mine who died of AIDS died with lessons that they learned upon their leaving, on their final days, in their final days. Some of the greatest lessons that they learned in life happened, and I got a chance to capture, witness, and now it's my chance to take that and share it with the world. It's their experience that I'm sharing as well as mine. So yeah, it should be big. It deserves to be big.
Yeah.
Their story deserves to be told.
And lastly, I'm wondering, what are your hopes for the future of your work?
I want to take what I'm doing right now, and I want to take it to adults and not just the teen. I do speak to adults, but I want more adults to hear what I have to say. They approach me and they say, I needed to hear this when I was a teenager. And then they say, I needed to hear this tonight because I'm an adult. So I want to take my messages, the way I say them, exactly what I say, to an adult community. But it's really accessible to high school students because teenagers congregate in places like schools and retreat centers and synagogues and camps and churches. But adults congregate in workplaces. They don't really congregate other places to meet as a group to learn and listen. So I want to go to the places they congregate, which would be corporate America, to say the same messages. You breathe, you belong, you are enough. You in your cubicle, you waiting for a paycheck are enough exactly as you are. Same messages, older demographic.
That's great. And I really think that it resonates with anyone of any age, not just teenagers. Thank you so much for joining us, giving your incredible insight on life and just in general. I mean, it was wonderful to hear from you again.
You're so welcome.
You can learn more about Scott's incredible work by visiting his website, scottfreed.com. Check out our Facebook and Twitter for the link to the interview in full. Just search WICB. And thank you again, Scott. It was such a pleasure.
Thanks so much.